Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live webinar, The Knowledge Gap, How to Deliver Fast, Accurate Answers to Customer Support Problems, brought to you by TSIA and sponsored by SupportLogic. My name is Vanessa Lucero, and I'll be your moderator for today. I would now like to introduce our presenters. John Ragsdale, Distinguished Researcher, Vice President of Technology Ecosystems for TSIA. Judith Platts, Chief Customer Officer for SupportLogic. Sariel Moshe, Co-founder and Chief Product Officer of Cvent. And Vineet Puri, Senior Vice President, Global Client Services for Cvent. As with all of our TSIA webinars, we have a lot of exciting content to cover in the next 45 minutes. So let's jump right in and get started. John, over to you.
Well, thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We've got a lot of content for you, so I'm going to dive right in. A quick peek at our agenda for the day. We're going to open with a discussion about the changing landscape of search and knowledge retrieval, the potential impact of Gen AI and answer engines, and Judy and I will have a bit of a conversation about that. We'll turn it over to Sariel to talk about Precision RAG, which he has covered previously with the TSIA audience and how it helps the support experience. Then we're going to hear from Vineet on Cvent success story. TSIA is a Cvent customer, so I'm very excited to hear what they're working on. And hopefully all of you saw the very exciting announcement today that SupportLogic and Cvent have joined forces. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to close out with a group discussion about the key elements to implementing Precision RAG. So when we talk about Gen AI and self-service, the focus has so far really been on the savings of productivity of agents, increasing deflection and self-service success. But I think that what we all need to keep in mind is improving self-service is very important from a customer experience standpoint. 75% of customers say they prefer or occasionally use self-service for support. So investing cool new technology in the channel that customers prefer to use really makes a lot of sense. So while I know there is great ROI on deflection and you can use that to make your business case, you're also meeting the customers where they live. We're talking about really the change in the support experience, self-service experience by introducing this Gen AI. And if we think historically that we're all used to that search box, what we're really talking about is going from a list of possible search matches to dynamically created responses, which can be personalized based on the account, based on the profiles, and pulling data from multiple places to create a really accurate, meaningful answer. So Judy, you have been in knowledge management circles for almost as long as I have. Can you talk about why the Gen AI is so important from a customer experience standpoint?
Oh, John, absolutely. And it's great to be here with you today, and Sariel and Vineet, you as well. And to the audience, thank you for joining. But John, we've talked about this for so long. The fact is we have to, like you said, meet the customers where they are, but give them the lowest effort possible to resolve their questions, to resolve their challenges and issues. But really, we have to get better at the precise answers. And, what is more frustrating to anybody than when you go into a search and you're just presented back with a dump? You get articles and you get release notes and you get documentation, and you want to believe that the one at the top is the right thing and that's the one you should go with. But do you ever really know? And I think that it's time in the industry, this is a problem that needs solving. And I'm so excited about the Cvent acquisition that we've made, because I think we've finally solved an easy but difficult problem.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, IT is really looking to buy as much technology from a single provider as possible. And there was this Venn diagram where SupportLogic and Cvent lived. And it's great to see that Venn diagram coming closer together. So when we survey TSI members about their impressions of how Gen AI is going to impact the knowledge management program, the majority of companies understand there is going to be an impact, a potentially major impact. And we think about the pain points that we've always heard. There's never enough resources to create content. How do we do contextual content suggestions for employees in real time when they're working with a customer? How can we create that conversational experience so it's not just a customer searching for one or two words and hoping they're going to get a search match back that is meaningful? And something that SupportLogic is really good at is the automated workflows. How can we use AI and Gen AI to really create a low effort experience for customers, as you mentioned, but also for employees as well? So could you give me some thoughts on really the potential for transformation to knowledge management support processes in general?
You hit the nail on the head when you said, it's been a constant conversation, do the agents have time to create the knowledge content hit? And John, you wrote a paper years ago, the knowledge management maturity model that you put together, right? And we talked about mature organizations. Knowledge wasn't just a support challenge. It wasn't just a support driven event. It was something that was across the entire enterprise. And I think, where this is going to be amazing for support organizations, they're going to benefit, the customers are going to benefit, but the entire organization's knowledge will become available to anybody searching for it. And today, it still lives in silos. We know that. And yet to get it out of those silos has been not fighting, but it's been a challenge. I think that this transformation and how we're going to go about having knowledge available, one of the largest repositories for knowledge is in fact the case management system. But I think, John, you used to have a number that I remember reciting when we were doing assessments, that I think it was 17 to 19 places where knowledge could live in an organization, and that people were searching that many places. So this today is really, the opportunity. And, I think that we're starting to see the switch where people do realize that knowledge is not just a support issue. It's a company-wide, enterprise-wide opportunity.
Yeah, I agree completely. And in this digital world and a customer experience world, anything we can use to create better content at every step of the customer journey is really going to have a big impact on annual recurring revenue. So clearly support is a great place to start with Gen AI, large volume of repetitive questions. We see from this data that the majority of companies are already experimenting with Gen AI within support, 50% external use with customers. This data is about 6 months old, so I suspect those numbers are even higher today. But I think one of the challenges is there was an article in the San Jose Mercury News this week that how many billions of dollars that venture capitalists have been investing in AI companies and Gen AI in particular. And every week I'm introduced to a new Gen AI tool that's, a couple of people working out of their garage somewhere. And IT is being hit with so many requests for projects that I worry that support may get lost in the shuffle. We know that support isn't always seen as the most strategic place for investments. But because they have such a strong business case, I think that they easily can make that case with IT to make sure that they're top of the funnel when they're looking at IT resources. Is that something that you are seeing? Is support being successful and getting high on the priority list for projects?
I'm not going to say that we're 100% there yet, but we are certainly seeing more success. And I think the interesting thing about it is, support leaders have been looking at AI for a while. They really have. They've been poking around and exploring. Now, this new onset of AI has changed it. All organizations are talking about AI all the time, right? And yet support has started. And I think, again, SupportLogic having a platform that's, been out there now for 8 years, thankfully, we've earned the trust of organizations. And I think that AI companies that are starting up, it's just, like you said, they're the smalls. They're, we say they're in a garage, but it's 2 or 3 people who are doing amazing things. And, I'd say to support leaders, stop viewing IT, right, as the enemy, and start to really build those relationships, because I think that IT truly does want to be there and recognizes that support's not just asking for tools for the sake of asking for tools. They really are asking for things that will benefit the entire organization. It just happens to be starting in support. But we've all remember, being prioritized after, let's say, sales or after marketing, right? It's always happened, or after product and engineering. But stay strong in this pursuit and really build those business relationships with IT, because again, not bringing in niche, but bringing in platform plays and bringing in a combined tool is super, super important. And more support leaders that I've talked to recently are looking at, and not looking at, having 15 niche providers or 25 niche providers.
And I think that brings us to this data point about where people are going for Gen AI capabilities. The majority of companies are looking for Gen AI as part of an intelligent search platform, analytics-based search, cognitive search, whatever you want to call it, tools like Xfind. Because they're already doing so much machine learning on what people are asking, the most popular content that they're selecting when they're looking for a particular answer. And putting Gen AI on top of that means that you're going to get time to value much faster. So all of these great tools that are coming on the market that are just Gen AI, in my opinion, are going to take much longer to validate, to do the training on your content, and ultimately to prove useful to employees and for customers. So again, I'm thrilled to see that Xfind is now part of SupportLogic. I think that's a very logical next step for people evaluating technology. But you mentioned I've been doing webinars on AI for a decade now, and Gen AI has been out maybe 18 months. But it sounds like you're really seeing the conversation shifting by executives. What are you hearing from your customers and prospects?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here, John, and your slide is validating that trust is growing, right? AI is not going away. It's not just that flash in the pan. It's here. But I think what customers really are wanting is the deep business experience and understanding and the industry knowledge. And I think, one thing that we know is you have to understand support to be able to truly give support tools, because you can't just create a tool and think that support. Every support organization is unique and different, but there is so much complexity to running a support org. And I think that our customers truly, truly deserve enterprise solutions today, not experiments. And I think a lot of the tools that we're seeing feel like experiments.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And while I admire, we just did a case study with F5 last week, and they're a great example of a company that will throw anything at the wall to see what sticks, and even if only 10% of them work. But not everybody has the budget or the culture to process like that. So enterprise grade solutions are really critical. Well, I mentioned RAG, which I think everybody is familiar with now, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And before I turn it over to Sariel to dive into that, I wanted to do a plug. The very first time we introduced the concept of RAG to TSIA members was October of 2023. And Sariel did an amazing webinar. You can find it on our website if you want to watch the on-demand, really explaining what it is, how you use it, what the advantages are. But boy, since October, things have moved really, really quickly. So Sariel, I'd love to turn things over to you to kind of give us an update on RAG now becoming precision RAG and what you've been seeing as the evolution.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Judy. And I'll just note that I'm really, really excited about us joining SupportLogic. It's really, I'm very excited about what we're going to be building together in the future. But yeah, to go back to my webinar with you a year ago. So back then, RAG was a concept that was just coming out. It was a few months old. Retrieval augmented generation, which was pretty much people understanding that, okay, now we have these large language models, and ChatGPT is showing us what's possible to do with them. How do we implement these in an enterprise context without hallucinations, without it making up stuff? How do we actually get an enterprise grade experience with this new powerful engine that we're seeing? And back then, it was a concept everyone was getting excited about, but everyone was also very worried about, right? AI, this new thing, we don't know what it's going to do. We're going to take a step back and let the early adapters try it out. And as you said, we've come a long way since. I think both in the willingness to try it out, just like you showed in the slide before, and in the power of the large language models themselves. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss. Like every week, there's a new model coming out. We have Llama, we have Claude, we have OpenAI. Everyone's competing to build the new large language model and small language models as well. So a lot's going on, but one thing hasn't changed since last year, and it's actually become even clearer. And this goes back to your discussion with Judy, which is there are quite a few challenges to developing RAG that not only works, but is actually reliable in an enterprise setting. And when I talk about an enterprise setting, support leaders obviously know that we're not just talking about how do we take a nicely built knowledge base and use that to power answers in whatever use case we want. We want to really be able to work with the black sheep of knowledge, right? Past cases, Jira, Slack channels, and to be able to work with those, that is a whole another level of complexity. And by the way, even knowledge bases, nicely organized knowledge bases, if they're very domain specific, like we're talking about like cybersecurity companies or hardware companies, in those cases, even then, the large language models won't be able to really do the work themselves. They don't have enough of context yet, at least, to be able to really deal with that by themselves. And so it can't just be a wrapper to ChatGPT or whatever large language model you want. And actually, many companies, we've seen this in the past year, many companies have been trying to build it by themselves, saying, okay, we'll just take a vector database, push an embedding into it, connect it to OpenAI, and it'll probably work. And it just doesn't in many cases. And really the challenges come down to a few different places in the process, and that's what I'd like to describe in this slide. So the challenges, first of all, are really the data source complexity. As I said, domain specific, the black sheep, the past cases in Jira. You can't just throw that at a large language model and expect magic. If it doesn't know the context, if it's an unorganized case with 100 comments long, it's not going to work. So you really need to be able to deal with that complexity. B is, and I think this is maybe the most important point, is that one of the biggest misconceptions I've been coming across again and again, people don't understand that RAG, the most important part of it is not the large language model at the end, but the search engine that's feeding that large language model with the context. And if you don't get a good enough search engine, and this goes again back to one of your slides earlier, that companies are aiming for the vendors that can combine those two, that can provide you a natural language search engine plus the AI element, because those really go together. If you're not able to focus on the right context, then you're not going to feed the large language model with relevant enough information to actually develop a good answer. Another point in that area is the cost and the context window. So a lot of these new models coming in, one of the big numbers they're talking about are the context window. How much information you can feed them in a prompt, how much information they can feed out in a prompt. But the problem is, again, you can throw as much information as you want at these large language models. It's not going to work if it's just not good enough for complex scenarios. You really have to be very focused in the specific parts of information you're feeding it. And this also goes into cost. So if you're just playing around with ChatGPT, that's nice. But if you want to build this at scale, for companies that have tens or hundreds of thousands of cases a year, that's a whole different question. And really, you have to be very precise in the way you use these large language models. Fourth challenge, and then I'll get into how we deal with these. So fourth challenge is search failure. And that's probably the most important one that people don't even think about, which is more importantly, especially in support, but not only in support, more importantly than being able to answer the question with the knowledge that's in place, is to be able to know when you don't have an answer and not answer at all. Because in support, we're dealing with customers that can get angry very quickly if you just throw at them garbage, and we don't want to throw at them garbage. So it's really critical we're able to detect when we don't have the relevant information, and then we can maybe use other sources, or we can just take it back to the agent, but by all means not answer an irrelevant answer. So how do we deal with these with all these challenges in Xfind? So first things first is, and this is a very important piece that, again, I think a lot of do-it-yourself approaches totally ignore, which is parsing and cleaning the data. So this is true for all different types of data, and you need to be able to do it very efficiently. So if we're talking about, again, a large knowledge base, like 10,000 articles, and it's constantly updating, hundreds of thousands of cases, you need to be able to efficiently take those items, clean them, and make them ready to feed into a large language model and to feed into the search engine before that. That's number one. That's one important point that we've built technology, specifically pipelines that are able to take cases, are able to take knowledge articles, able to take JIRA tickets, and efficiently parse them and clean them, and do this at scale across many different types of customers and many different types of use cases. And the second part is, again, the vector DB is like the do-it-yourself approach. We don't take that approach. We say we want a much more robust search engine that takes into account any model and any method that's available out there that can really catch context. Why is catching context important? Because if we're talking about natural language queries, and later we'll see that natural language queries can actually be an entire support case as a query, we want to be able to really understand what's going on in that case. An embedding in a vector database can do that, not in the level of precision that we're expecting. We really need to be able to catch many different elements in the information on a lexical level, on a semantic level. So we really want a much more robust search engine feeding the information. Then we come to how do we focus on the specific context, and this is the passages part. So the idea is, okay, we found the top most relevant items, knowledge article or case or ticket, that we want to feed into the large language model. Right now, but at this point, we don't want to feed the entire item. We want to feed the specific part that's actually going to answer the question, again, because of cost and because of making sure that we're actually going to get a good answer. And then come the guardrails. The guardrails, what they're doing is, again, avoiding answering questions when we don't actually have any relevant knowledge. So the guardrails really break down into two, and these are proprietary technology that we've developed over the years. One is detecting when the query is not actually related at all to the knowledge base. So maybe you've heard of all these cases where customers come in and ask an unrelated question to a chatbot, and the chatbot just answers, even though it's totally unrelated to what that company is doing. We want to stop that at the get-go. Like if someone's coming in and asking, how do I walk my dog? That's not relevant to this chatbot. No answers. No, we can't find any answer for that. Number two is, even if it is relevant to the knowledge base, if we can't find any actually relevant item in the list provided, we want to tell that to the user. We have this list, but we don't believe any of these items are actually going to answer your question. What do you want to do at this point? So that's what we've been building and we've been really focusing on, obviously, for the past year and a half. And that's what we're bringing into SupportLogic. This is really technology at a whole nother level than what I believe in, what I've seen is really out there in the market at the moment, in terms of how do we build, again, this RAG process that can power many different use cases, and we'll touch that later on, in complex scenarios, dealing with complex data, and is enterprise grade for the most complex types of customer support and otherwise in the enterprise. Now, moving on to our work with Cvent. So I'd like to start out, before I hand it over to Judy and Vineet, maybe start out, and this again connects to what we've discussed earlier, is how Xfind got into Cvent in the first place, how we started working with Cvent. So this is about 3 years ago. They reached out to us, the Cvent support team, and what they were telling us was that their customers were very unhappy. And again, this is pre-AI, pre-ChatGPT craze. Their customers were very unhappy with the search results they were seeing in the portal. They were asking questions but not getting relevant enough results, and it was just not a good enough experience. And they went ahead and said, okay, we need really to improve this experience. We want to make what's called self-service much more efficient for our customers, right? How do we help them find the information they need to solve their own issues without having to send in cases? And this is a classic issue that many enterprises deal with. Those keyword-based search bars that are still prevalent in many different support portals, they're not usually really adapted to the needs of enterprises, again, specifically in complex data scenarios and domain-specific issues. So they set out to find a superior search experience, and we were one of the vendors they reached out to. And I think one of the things they really liked about us was our ability at Xfind to deal with complex natural language queries very simply, without requiring really any work on Cvent's side or on the customer's side to filter or focus or do anything of that sort, tag on their end. Our engine, as I said earlier, the search engine itself is robust enough to be able to deal with long queries, complex queries, and retrieve relevant items at the top of the list. And they even ran a benchmark comparing us to other options they had, and we came up on top. Actually on par and even better than what Google was showing them on their data. So that's how we got into Cvent. It's been, I love working with them. Vineet, really, you have a great team there. And I think at this point, I'll hand it over to you and to Judy to discuss how you're working on these topics these days.
Thank you, Sariel. Vineet, hi. Glad that we're together here today.
Hi, Judy. And yeah, thanks, Sariel. Kind of agree with most of what you've said, Judy and John. It's a pleasure to be here, especially Judy. Well, we've known each other for many years now, between SupportLogic and your previous life, I could say. So yes. Really glad to be here.
Wonderful. Vineet, you're known as a transformational leader in the industry, and you have a an amazing reputation. So I'm going to ask you a couple tough questions because I think that people would love to learn from you a little bit. Tell me some of the things that you've been trying to do at Cvent to give your customers a better experience.
Sure. First, thanks for the compliment. Means a lot. You'll remember the time, when we first spoke and we were talking about, hey, we want to have a digital first strategy. Frankly, I think we started in 2020. We were like, we need to move away from the way we are doing things. And the approach we took was give the customers all the channels they need. Don't push them on a particular channel. I hate companies and leaders when they push customers through a self-service channel by hiding the 1-800 number behind multiple pages, multiple this, that. So the idea we had was very simple. We wanted to go ahead and give our customers all options, and that meant self-service options as well. Now, like Sariel said, yeah, we were having a difficult time getting the right data pulled out, the right articles pulled out, and some context. Cvent is a full-blown platform. We do end-to-end from simple events to the most complex events, thousands of features, two completely different sets of I would say, offerings which are related. So a lot of similar terminology across different products. Basically, what I'm trying to say is fairly complex setup for you to be able to key in a particular search item in the search bar and hope to get the right answer. So that's what we're dealing with. We're talking about multiple products, similar lingo. A lot of context is required. It's that you could be in the product to do 6 different jobs in the same page. So unless you could ask a query and the search engine could actually gather the context, you would not be able to get the right answers. Anyway, that's some context. So we set off on this journey, and we were very fortunate to find Xfind as a partner. We evaluated multiple providers, to be very honest and fair. When we were looking at Xfind, we were like, still a startup. Are we going to try that search engine? But the results were really astonishing, if I could. We were getting what we needed. We never thought, that's going to be the case. So anyway, we started with that. I think what Xfind did for us really was 3 things I can think of. One, unified search. When we're talking about pulling information, we're pulling information from our training content, from our KB articles, from our community forums. So all of the knowledge could be residing anywhere. So it's actually helping us pull out the right kind of content from there. Then what it's also helped us do really was unified experience for our customers. It doesn't matter where you are, you could still get the same experience. And third was actually federated and contextual search to be able to get right answers. So that's point 1. And before we got to that, really, digressing a little, but I agree with Sariel, a lot of the work to be done to get this kind of a transformation implementation done. A lot is said, but it's really hard to be able to, especially because of all of this technology is fairly recent. We're coming out of the woods from SOPs and decision trees to federated search to generative AI, precision RAG, and all of that. So not every provider is mature. There aren't, so to say, many platforms which are kind of doing the end-to-end. So that's a real challenge that people will have to deal with. So just coming back to the point then. So before you could go to a proper search engine, we had to get the right KB articles, so right knowledge base. At this point in time, I'm talking about 3,500 odd different pieces of information that resides in a database. Then there is internal material that we have on top of it. So we had to get that right. We first got that right. We went ahead with Xfind to get our search right. But we didn't stop there. We really wanted self-service to become more meaningful. And I would say that, Cvent is amongst the front runners when it comes to adopting generative AI. So we went ahead and built our own generative AI-based bot. We call it Agent Assist. And I saw Agent Assist somewhere and I was like, really? I mean, we thought we just created this, but there you go. So We created our own bot. As of today, I think we run 60,000 queries, and it's performing at about an 85% accuracy. So doing a very good job for us. That's really made our agents efficient, but from our customers' perspective, we have got reduced wait times, pointed answers, things really getting done for you when it comes to self-service. Now, because we experimented with our internal bot, and this was not a customer-facing bot, we tried it for about a year, and then we went ahead and very recently, like 15 days back, we launched our first customer-facing generative AI bot. So here we are now with a customer-facing bot, which is actually doing, again, a terrific job, but we had built this proof of concept. So that's what we have done. And as I talk to you, we have our prototype ready for a KB bot. So this one, what it does is when it is not able to find, when any of our bots are not able to find an answer, and the rep already knows the answer, so he or she is actually putting it down, just comments, this bot actually picks up all of that information and it'll do one of two things. Either it'll create a new article for you, or it'll say, hey, the article already exists. It's just not catering to this particular scenario. So you could just go ahead and feed it in here. If you let me, just say, okay, and I will go ahead and update the existing knowledge base of yours. And this is Slack integrated. So imagine the convenience. So in Slack, type it in, and there you go. So that's the most recent thing that we're working on. But that's really been our kind of transformation journey from almost kind of like everything non-self-service to here we are where we're really going self-service, but we don't want to hide behind self-service. We want it to be a channel. We want to be digital first, but human-led. So we'll let our customers decide how they want to be serviced, and we're there to service them.
That's fantastic. There's an item in there that I loved. The fact that you focused inward first, and you put the emphasis on helping the agents, getting their experience down. I think you said almost for a year before you turned out to the customers. And so you validate, right, that customers don't really want ever to be experimented on. And when you consider it from that lens, as well as taking great care of your agents and helping them in their day-to-day job, you can't help but win and be successful when you go in that order. So that's very good. So you became a customer of ours, thankfully, last year. Just quickly, if you can, tell me what excites you the most about seeing us and Xfind come together. What does that do for you as a buyer? What does that do for you as the leader that you are? Why is this a good thing?
I absolutely love this, and I should have covered it in the first question. But let me first quickly reflect on that comment of yours. For me, my first customer is my team, my employees. If I'm able to make their lives comfortable, if I'm able to give them a great experience, they will ensure that the customers are getting a great experience. And it's not like people don't come to work to do a good day's job. The problem is sometimes we're not giving them the tools that they need to be successful and to make the customer successful. So it's on the leaders first to equip their people to be able to do a good job. And I think with a lot of this technology, that's exactly what we have been able to do. We have been able to equip our people to get the answers that they can provide to the customers to solve the query. So that said, yeah, I should have spoken about SupportLogic. So part of our journey really was that, okay, with our quality team, with all that we could do, we could analyze 1 to 2% of the transactions that we're talking about. And I'm talking about 500,000 transactions in a year. So that's a lot. There is no chance that we're going to be able to audit all of these and stuff like that. So in our quest to be digital first, we were looking at something that, hey, give us something that kind of skims through our cases and goes through it and is able to do something about it. In that journey, we also tried speech analytics. So you pick speech analytics, it'll translate your calls into text, analyze it, all of that. But frankly, we did not have much luck with it. It was not something that I would term as a success. And very recently, we launched SupportLogic. And to tell you, not just me, my entire team, leadership team, we're super excited with what we're seeing. Here's what it is doing for us. So 500,000 cases in a year, it's going through our cases as a talk, and it's bucketizing them into product opportunity, follow-up requests, urgency, happy customer, sentiment scores. A lot of that is exactly what we need. The minute we see anything in that particular bucket, I have my leaders, hey, just pull it up, let's look at it, go talk to the person. We're at a point we are kind of creating alerts that the same case will get routed back to the same person who actually handled it and say, hey, you know what? The customer's happy, but the customer has a additional query, or the customer wants a little more of help here. This is the current status on your case. So now you know that the rep already knows that, hey, this customer, I kind of was able to solve one part of the problem, but there is something else I need to help with, and it is urgent, and which bucket it falls in. So it's allowing us to do a lot of things. Prioritize, pick up sentiment, identify and really kind of stack rank product things, you name it, and we've got that intelligence that was humanly impossible for us to gather. So I think it's the next level kind of thing that we needed. And when it comes together with Xfind, once you guys are truly able to integrate it, I think it'll be a great platform play. And there should be many takers for that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vineet. Thank you for being here with us today to share your story. I think there's something so powerful when industry leaders can come together and not be shy about discussing the fact that, hey, I had a challenge, I had a problem, and I wasn't perfect to begin with, and I went out and I'm working to solve that problem. I think that transparency is so important. And I really, really value you as a customer and as an executive in our industry, Vineet. Thank you. So I'm going to move forward a little bit. We have a lot of amazing content that we've put together for this session. And people who are attending, I believe you'll be able to receive copies of these slides. Certainly, we can make them available as well. But we did stack this deck together and really had a lot in here. But I think where we're going today and where we want to end up, with all of this content and the session that we've had, is to really just recognize that today, there are multiple paths that customers take and engineers take to get to the answers. And so when we think about this from that standpoint, we have Portal Assist, the Chatbot Assist, Slack Assist, and CRM Assist, and each one of those is benefiting, either the internal teams, the support teams, the end customers. The possibilities are truly, truly limitless. And if we can start to think about, again, that mega database that we have sitting there with our knowledge answers already in it because we've solved the cases before, and we don't have to go through this painful process of tag that case and make that case, submit an article, get the article reviewed and published and authored, and our agents can literally find the information in the case management system and move on. I think, for all of us, a takeaway today is how powerful that is. So, John, I'd love to turn it over to you as we wind down in this last minute or two, and let's talk about the fact that let's talk about what knowledge management makes a knowledge management project successful, because I think that's why a lot of people are here, to learn that.
Well, that's a big topic for the minute we have remaining, but I think it is really understanding what the requirements for the knowledge are. I think that has definitely evolved a lot, not only from the vendor side with rolling releases and monthly releases. The timeframes are getting a lot quicker, as well as looking at some purposes for knowledge management, such as understanding what customers are struggling with, so we can make improvements to onboarding or to the product itself to eliminate some of those. What do you think are some of the most strategic elements of a KM program?
Well, let's get the buy-in. Let's get the buy-in across the company. I think that is vital, and we have to stop again looking at it as just a support issue alone. Again, having domain expertise is absolutely so critical. And I think, for me, John, and you and I have talked about this for years, can we please remove the heaviness of what knowledge creation and content cleanup feels like? There's some amazing methodologies out there, but just like product development, get into the agile way of doing things, remove the multiple layers. I think that is going to be so critical moving forward. And tools like this are going to help with that finally. So hopefully, in a couple months or a year from now, John, we're smiling because everything we've talked about for the last 30 years has finally happened.
Yes, if we can get over the companies that take 6 months to publish a knowledge article, that would be a fantastic first step.
Indeed.
Well, Vanessa, I know we are up against time. Do you want to close us out?
We are, yes. Thank you so much, John. Just a reminder, we had a ton of questions come in. Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer them here live, but don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you, and we will make sure to follow up. And since we've come to the conclusion of the webinar, a few more reminders. There will be an exit survey, and we'd appreciate it if you could please take a few minutes to provide your feedback on the content and your experience by filling out that survey. I know the link to the recorded version of today's webinar will be sent out within the next 24 hours. Puri, Sariel, and Vineet for delivering a fantastic conversation, and to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's live webinar, The Knowledge Gap, How to Deliver Fast, Accurate Answers to Customer Support Problems, brought to you by TSIA and sponsored by SupportLogic. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Take care, everyone.